Good morning. Happy Saturday. Um, it's been a hot minute since I have done a live. Mainly because things around here um, have been nuts. Um, but I wanted to hop on here, maybe, um, and say hi and um, give you a little tiny tidbit of what I keep getting questions about mine and my good friend, co-creator Katie Reed's e-course, Social Wise Jew. And this was one thing that keeps coming up over and over and over and over and over and over, and that is, good morning, Gloria. Um, is it just like internet jabber, like, or tools, or like, what do you want to know? And I will tell you what I know. And I know some of you don't have time to just go read. We have tons of FAQ, tons of little mini videos and other things like that on there. If you get there and you can hear, if you get here and you can hear me, hit that like button and the love button, say stuff so that other people know that we're here and we're talking about this. But I have one thing that I can offer you, whether you do the course or not, that I want to talk about that we've been using in our household for a long time, actually longer than I realized that we were using it, which could have something to do with my background in counseling and human development, but how we interact, which is love versus fear. And good morning, Aunt Voy. Hi. So this is big, and it just happened just the other day with Sam on something that he was watching on TV, and he came in and he was kind of pale, and he said, I saw something that's not for me. And so I hopped up and went in there. We have all the restrictions on our TVs and on the internet and everything, but he was visibly upset. And the thing was that it was a cartoon, and he had asked me if he could watch it, and I looked at it and said yes, and then he said the words, I saw something that was not for me, and was afraid. And it was actually really mild. It wouldn't have phased Charlie or anybody else in my family. But Sam, who has chronic nosebleeds, is really hypersensitive to images of blood. It freaks him out. And this was actually alien blood, so it was green, but he was moved, so that was the verbiage. And that verbiage is part of what we talk about in Socialized You, is it's not for me. Is this for me or is it not for me? And then making those decisions. But this was big. So, and the big thing that I want to share with you is one huge tip that I think so many of us are missing in internet safety, social media safety, is our fight or flight responses. And our fight or flight responses as parents, we usually don't have the flight. We just have the fight. We're going to fight for this. We're going to jump in both feet and rah, stop it. Don't do that. Quit it. What's wrong with you? Are you crazy? Where did I go wrong? Because we're, got that mama bear or daddy bear instinct to fight, right? Because we don't flight. Usually we don't run from those situations because we want to do whatever we can to protect our children. So, but this was interesting as we were just developing the concepts in Social Wise You, which actually stemmed off of my next book and some of the things that I talk in my next book, Rest Girl, about. And that is 3 parts of the mind and how we operate in just a normal setting based on those 3 parts of our minds. But this is the biggest one to me. And actually, Katie and I had a meeting yesterday, and the person was telling us a story about somebody she knew that something similar happened. And on social media, it was very upsetting for their kid. And, these big, huge issues that keep coming up over and over and over again for families that go beyond, especially now with COVID and our kids doing online school and everything basically being online, that we maybe are not prepared for or haven't prepared ourselves for in dealing with social media issues like bullying and all the other stuff that we've already talked about. And that is that our kids, this is their whole network, right? And if this is your whole network, this is where you're, if you're in the stages of development for identity, this is where you're basically picking up pieces outside of what your family believes, and your peer group is bigger than it's ever been. It goes well beyond, 25 kids in a classroom or 1,000 kids in a high school. It's worldwide. And so it makes it a much bigger issue, which it makes it more frightening. And when we're scared, when we have that rush as parents, we have the fight or flight response, and usually it bubbles up into fight. And we're going to fight for them, and we're going to stop this nonsense, and it's going to all stop here. But one of the major things that I think that we forget to take into account, and I know I've done this because I've been in situations where with my kids, where my only goal was to protect them, and to protect them meant shutting it down. You're done. That's it. It's over. And, we grounded them or, something else. But this is my big one. And that is the threat of losing their phone or social media, especially at this stage in the game, when it's everything. And I think because social media has just been growing and growing and growing and growing, and even there's some people that have emailed us and just said, my kid doesn't get to use social media. Well, if they're doing a Zoom call with their class, guess what that is? It's social and it's media. Sorry. It's just the way that the ball is bouncing now. So in that space where we're identifying ourselves as parents and our responses, the one thing that I think that we always kind of miss is their fight or flight. And this is really big to me because we know what the fight looks like, right? We know them barking at us, I hate you, you've ruined my life, it's all is lost. But I don't think that we've taken into account what the flight looks like. And in our minds, even though fight or flight used to be, raging up against the bear that was attacking you or running from the bear that was attacking you, the bear is suggestive because it's you can't put your hands on it because it's online. So when our kids are in fight or flight and we don't recognize that fight or flight for what they're trying to deal with, so say the fight is that something happens on social media or the internet that you don't want to have happen. So your fight instinct is to take that away from them. I'm going to take that from them. That's gone. And in their reaction is also a fight or flight, and they might bark back at you, but they also have to have a flight mechanism because this space to them is life. This is how they This is how they socialize. This is how they interact. This is this bulk thing that means their survival. And that might seem silly, but what are we when we're young people but our peers? So our peers are this big, huge group, and we've got the parents fighting to stop it, and the kids either fighting or the flight part of it. And the flight part of it is to protect it and to make it safe. In which case we have secrecy, sneakiness, this whole new species of a human that's just trying to survive in what they know is their whole world. So when we think about it from that aspect of fight or flight, the fear response that comes from, I'll take your phone, you're not allowed online anymore, you're not allowed to do this thing anymore, never again. They really have one opportunity. They can rage against you or they can flee. And in the fleeing, there's so many more opportunities for them to be unprotected because you don't know. And I use the example of, a little, like say a rabbit that is got to respond out of fight or flight. And it really doesn't have any fight in it. What's a rabbit going to do? It does scream. It might scratch you if you're holding it too tight. But for the most part, its response, its fear response is flight. And when it is in that it's just weaving in and out, trying to get away, trying to get away. And then what does it do? It hides, and it hides wherever it can. And it might not even make the very best decision, but it makes the one that it knows it's going to save itself. And when we're dealing with our kids, and that's not recognized and not even discussed, like, you don't have to hide from me, you don't have to run, we can talk about this. And I think one of the things that I remember most about, now my kids of course grew up with social media as it was blowing up, and now it's doing a whole new thing. And that whole new thing is another thing that scares some parents, because how is this is going to affect, different ways that they're interacting even more if things are being censored or taken down, or they're only seeing one side or the other. Whether you agree with that or not, it's still something new that's going on. And as adults, we're all processing that as adults. As kids are processing that, they are only seeing the threat of losing this thing that is their point of contact. It's the roller rink from 1985. It's, this is where they meet. This is where they're expressing themselves. This is where they're meeting new people. This is where everything is now happening, because we've, been sequestered. So, hi, Amy. So this is super important to recognize. And this is one question that we ask our kids on the regular. I actually just said it, I think yesterday and maybe today, but it's the basic question: are you operating out of love or fear? Are you afraid? Is something scaring you? And when we ask this question, there's automatically this place in our subconscious that goes, I get to decide, I get to say, I get to have some words about this. And it's easy to have, the knee-jerk reactions. Got to save the babies because we want to save our children from these hardships. But the hardship is not so easy as just taking the phone, because that's a threat. And that threat, whether it is the best, it may be the best decision, but acknowledging the spaces where now that person that has lost something, or that was threatened, that human being that was threatened, that little mammal that was threatened, has to make a decision to save itself. And so is that decision going to be a fight where you're actually, duking it out and talking about all these things, or is it going to be flight? And flight in the world of social media, online, all of those things is a big deal, because we have so many parents that have emailed us with Socialized You and commented on our posts and wanted to discuss this thing, and that is, my kid was doing this. I had no idea they were doing it. I took their phone from them forever ago. They got one from a friend. They did this. I don't even recognize this person. And this is the question, part of the question that needs to be asked. Were they in flight? Were they running from you, or were they running to you because you understood the grand aspects of social contact via media in the current world that we live in? It's now not even, it's hard because we get a lot of this from a lot of parents. My teen's just not allowed to do it. And in some cases, maybe that's true, and I hope so. But the reality is it's everywhere, which is another reason that fight or flight might come up, and that is a trust issue. So if you're on social media on your phone and your kid asks about it and you go, no, you're not allowed to do it, and then you're doing it, then there's instantly in their subconscious a question of trust. And if, the wolf says, come on in, it's perfectly safe, you can eat with me, and the little lamb goes, oh, okay, and goes in, they know there's like a conflict, right? And then there's going to be the next step in that conflict, which is fight or flight. And flight is a lot safer. The parent, and I'm not calling you a wolf, I really am not, but I'm talking about from the human brain perspective. The human brain is just trying to survive. And past, Two, these kiddos are going to have to start making decisions that protect themselves for themselves. And if part of that is the threat of losing something that they see as life-giving, even if we just go, oh, it's nonsense, we got by without it forever, it's no big deal, it's a lifeline to them, then they have to make the choice whether or not they're going to fight for it or flee from it. And fleeing from it is sometimes more easy, but then it just starts this cyclical mess of secrecy and lying, and then not being protected by the one person or two people that want to protect them the most because they felt like they had to. So this is a little bit out of what exactly how we teach it in Socialized You. In Socialized You, we have just a few different ways to break it down. We have an acronym that we talk about it. But it is something that you could actually start implementing whether you did the course or not, in that we have to recognize in our kids that they can even respond in fight or flight to us. Even though we are the good guys and we're just trying to protect them, recognizing that they are, when they see the threats that are coming, even if their threats are on social media or the threat is coming from in the home, there's still that initial animal instinct. We talk about this when we talk about our kids dealing with each other in school, like if it's a bully or a teacher that they don't get along with. We talk about these situations in everyday life as it used to be, and how we interact with each other, whether or not we're responding to someone, attacking them out of any of the feelings that we have, jealousy, hate, rage, anything that we feel when we're interacting with people one-on-one. Love, adoration, any of those feelings that we're used to having, where we're with that person and we get to know that person and we can see that person, we shake that person's hand, see the expressions on their face, experience them in different ways. Online, there's this whole new piece that the subconscious doesn't know the difference. The conscience sometimes doesn't even know the difference between what's real and what's fake. And so in that space of confusion, then we're also hypersensitive to responding out of fight or flight, posting something just on the fly, and then going, oh, why did I do that? And we as adults do that. But I think this is super important. And one of the things that I love about Socialized You is that it is actually for ages, school-aged to 20. It's kind of progressive, but it's also this breakdown of the psychology, the mindset, and the parts of the mind that are affected by interaction on the internet. The mind doesn't, we're basically primal in so many ways, and so we still respond to what's hot, or hot to the touch, or those things. But now we have this whole new world that does things we couldn't even have fathomed even 25 years ago in our pockets and in our kids' pockets. But because it's all they know now, this is a generation that's coming up that won't ever know a time that you couldn't say out loud to a glass box which way to McDonald's, and it instantly tells you. They won't ever know that. So it makes it even more of a threat to them to think that they wouldn't have that. And Katie, my co-creator of Socialized You, said it night before last, she lost her cell phone. And she said it's so foreign because it's such a part of us. And so when there's the threat that that's going to be taken away, the other thing that we've had a lot of feedback about with the e-course is the gang mentality of, oh my gosh, if we tell our parents what we saw, or we tell them what's going on with this, they're going to take our phone. And so instead of being honest about it, they're like, our lips are sealed, nobody talk. It's just understood. And that pack mentality is another thing that can really make the flight even more substantial in the hiding and the secrecy, and then the ability for our kids to lean on each other to do something that we've said can't go on anymore in our home. So this is huge, and it's huge in so many ways, is recognizing whether or not our kids are operating out of fight or flight, and not just on the internet, but just with everything. Am I enticing in them? Is this conversation, this threat, this way that we're handling this, is it me being just terrified and lashing out in fight, or even, I guess, withdrawing? There's been sometimes I did with my kids, I just can't hear this. And of course, I like to think I regrouped, but sometimes it's hard to hear. Like, really, do I have, oh, my kids will tell me anything. Bless it. So, but recognizing in them the response of fight or flight, which, we analyze and pick our kids to death and take them to counseling, and we do all these things to help them. But when we're looking at just this primal response of fight or flight, are they scared and so they're running from me? Are they scared so they're making rash decisions in the back of their mind somewhere that is just for what they consider survival? That's my little 411 on that, because I've had several questions about it. So I hopped on here. I know I wasn't very conversational, but I wanted to get on here and share that with you. I dropped the link in the notes above this video. If you want to know more about Social Wise Jew, an e-course to prepare, empower, and protect our kids and ourselves, and actually in so many ways has just absolutely changed everything about parenting two little boys as I hit the halfway mark on my 49th year with 6 kids. I think it's a real blessing, and I hope you'll go check it out. Otherwise, go have your Saturday. I've got to have more coffee, and I'm going to paint, and I'm going to hang out with my little boys and my hubby, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.